The planet Gehenna Prime was a world where the floor was literally lava. It was a planet with a crust so thin and unstable that tectonic activity was a daily weather forecast. The surface was a charred wasteland of basalt and ash, but the true danger lay beneath. This was the domain of the Ignis-Kai. The Ignis-Kai were not carbon-based life forms. They were silicate magma entities, creatures born of the mantle, thriving in temperatures that would vaporize steel. To them, the solid crust of the planet was just a thin layer of dead ice, covering the true vibrant world of flowing fire beneath. They viewed the human mining colonies on the surface as an infestation of soft, cold parasites scratching at the skin of their world. And they had a terrifying method of pest control. The Ignis-Kai didn't march to war. They swam. They moved through the subterranean magma currents like sharks in the ocean. When they decided to attack a human settlement, they didn't breach the walls. They gathered directly beneath the city in massive schools, using their combined geothermal resonance to superheat the bedrock above them. The first sign of an attack wasn't a siren, it was the ground getting hot. Then the asphalt of the roads would begin to bubble. Foundations would crack. And finally, in a catastrophic failure of the crust, the entire city, buildings, tanks, soldiers and civilians, would simply sink into a sudden churning lake of molten rock. They called it the Great Melting. They are pathetic. Hymagos Vulcan of the Ignis-Kai bubbled through the magma channels, his voice a low rumble of shifting tectonic plates. They build their little metal boxes on the hardened skin of the world. They fear the true heat. We shall remind them that nothing solid lasts forever. We shall melt the ground beneath their feet and drink their ashes. The human campaign on Gehenna Prime was facing total collapse. The 3rd Mechanized Division had lost 3 entire forward operating bases in a week. They didn't lose them to enemy fire. They lost them because the ground simply stopped existing under their treads. "We can't fight them, Command." Colonel Graff shouted over the comms, watching his lead tank slowly sink into a glowing pit that used to be a supply route. "My seismic sensors are useless. The whole planet is vibrating. I can't shoot magma with a railgun. We are fighting the planet itself, and the planet is eating us alive." General Elias Frostbite Thorne watched the disaster unfold from his orbital command station. Thorne was not a typical military man. Before the war, he was a deep-core ice hauler on the frozen moons of Jupiter, specializing in manipulating temperatures near absolute zero for industrial storage. He looked at the thermal scans of Gehenna Prime, a world pulsing with angry red and orange veins. He didn't see an unwinnable war. He saw a thermodynamic imbalance. "They like it hot, do they?" Thorne grumbled, his breath frosting slightly in the cold air of the bridge. He tapped the screen, pointing at the massive subterranean magma flows. "They think magma is an ocean. They think they're safe swimming in the fire." He turned to his engineering chief. "Get me the industrial cryobaric division. And tell them to bring the big drills. The ones we use for cracking comets." "General," the chief hesitated. "Those aren't weapons. They're mining tools meant to inject liquid nitrogen and metallic hydrogen into ice cores." "Everything is a weapon if you use enough of it," Thorne snapped. "They're attacking us with geology. We're going to hit them back with chemistry. We're going to turn down the thermostat." The humans stopped trying to reinforce the ground. They started preparing to inject it. Under the cover of volcanic ash clouds, massive human transport ships dropped the Cryo-Hammers. These were gargantuan, treaded drilling platforms, each the size of a city block, originally designed to crack open frozen moons. They were loaded not with explosives, but with millions of gallons of hyperpressurized liquid nitrogen, liquid helium, and experimental endothermic reactive agents. Hymagos Vulcan sensed the new vibrations on the surface above the main human staging area. "More heavy machines," Vulcan rumbled to his magma-swimming horde, 10,000 strong beneath the crust. "They bring more metal for the melting pot. Gather the currents. Superheat the mantle. Let us swallow this final nest whole." The ground beneath the human base began to glow dull red. The air shimmered with intense heat. Seismic alarms screamed as the bedrock began to lose its structural integrity. General Thorne, watching the thermal feeds turn white-hot, waited until the last possible second. "Wait for it," Thorne whispered. "Let them get nice and close to the surface. Let them think they've won." The ground began to crack, plumes of steam and ash venting into the air. The Ignis-Kai horde swirled just meters below the surface, ready to breach. "Now!" Thorne roared. "Drop the hammer. Freeze them out." 50 massive cryo-hammer rigs simultaneously fired their primary injectors. Hisses. The sound was unlike anything ever heard on a battlefield. It was the scream of thermal shock on a planetary scale. Massive, diamond-tipped drilling rods punched through the thin crust and deep into the magma pockets below. They didn't explode. They vented. Millions of tons of hypercooled liquid gases, sitting just degrees above absolute zero, were injected directly into the churning, 1,200-degree magma current. The reaction was catastrophic. When extreme heat meets extreme cold in a confined space, physics gets violent. The magma didn't just cool down, it flash froze. Below ground, Hymeagos Vulcan was leading the charge when his world suddenly went wrong. The fluid, welcoming heat of the magma current vanished in a microsecond. Cold, the collective mind of the Ignis-Kai shrieked. The fire. The flow. Stops. The magma around them turned instantly from a glowing liquid into solid, brittle obsidian and gray basalt. The thermal contraction was so sudden and violent that it created massive seismic shock waves, cracking the tectonic plates. Vulcan tried to swim, but he was no longer in an ocean. He was encased in rock. The flowing fire that made up his body cooled and solidified. He was trapped, frozen mid-motion, a statue of cooled lava embedded in the new bedrock. 10,000 Ignis-Kai warriors were instantly fossilized alive. On the surface, the spectacle was terrifying. The glowing red ground suddenly turned a dead, ashy gray. Massive geysers of white steam exploded into the air as the nitrogen boiled off, instantly freezing the moisture in the atmosphere and causing it to snow on the volcanic world. The Cryo-Hammers sat in the middle of a sudden, unnatural glacier, their vents coated in thick white frost, pumping the last of the cold into the dying planet. The Great Melting had become the Great Freezing. Colonel Graff drove his tank cautiously over ground that, minutes ago, had been molten slag. It was now solid, cold rock, covered in a layer of strange volcanic snow. His sensors detected thousands of distinct, frozen shapes trapped deep beneath the surface. "Command," Graff reported, his voice filled with awe. "The seismic activity has ceased. The ground temperature is -60 degrees. We have solid footing." Up in orbit, General Thorne watched the red thermal map turn a soothing, icy blue. He zipped up his jacket, feeling satisfied with the chill. "They forgot the first rule of thermodynamics, Colonel," Thorne said over the comms. "Heat moves to cold. They brought the fire. We just brought a much, much bigger ice bucket." He looked down at the frozen world. Let them stay down there. They wanted to be part of the planet's crust? Now they are. Forever. The conquest of Gehenna Prime ended not with a bang but with a shiver. The humans didn't need to fight the lava monsters in their own element. They just used industrial-scale chemistry to change the environment until the enemy couldn't survive in it. Humanity had proven the ultimate environmental HFY truth. You can be born of fire. You can swim in magma and laugh at heat that melts steel. But you are still subject to the laws of physics. And if you pick a fight with a species that knows how to weaponize absolute zero, you're going to find out that freezing to death is a hell of a lot faster than burning. We don't need to stand the heat. We just need to turn off the furnace. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. Stay frosty out there. The floor is no longer lava. If you enjoyed this chilling victory over the magma aliens, hit that like button. Comment below. What's the most extreme environment you think humans could conquer with industrial science? Subscribe for the next story in the New Frontier saga, The Logic Paradox. The fire is out. The rock is solid.